So, Raf, what would you say is like the biggest innovation recently? You talked about laser, right? But in the last, if you were to look at the last 10 years, what would you say has been the biggest change that you've seen on your side of it?
I would say, it kind of depends on the hemisphere because, there's some things being done, for example, in Asia or other parts of the world that have not reached or have not become mainstream, in application in other regions. So I'd say probably the biggest and most significant in the last decade or so, at least for the American continent, has been water-based PVC-free inks in general. I mean, the way that the amount of opacity and the coverage of a water-based ink was kind of unheard of, maybe 10, 12 years back, in the larger cities of the US and in Latin America, of course. So that, I think we've been very, very dependent, as a continent on like plastisol or, products, acrylic based products and plastic based products such as that. But I think what's really pushed the industry, at least here in the continent, has been, the way that water based has really paid off and the way that it continues to be, installed in larger shops. And, just showing how, 10, 12 years ago, that just was not possible. And now it's really kind of changed manufacturers' minds.
Wow. So you talked about hemisphere, right? And you said, there's things that have not hit, this continent yet. Has water base are we behind? Meaning, like, if you were to go to the Asian countries, like you talked about, have they been using water base a lot longer than we have? Or are we leading that, or, that charge?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think cost wise, Asia has obviously they have their raw materials very close. So in terms of like supply chain and cost, that they're basically living in ground zero, right? That's where a lot of the raw materials come from. It's obviously prior to shipping or freight, the cost is very attractive to them. So I believe that if for different reasons that the water-based product has been used in other hemispheres such as Asia much earlier than in the Americas. The Americas I feel like has been very tea printing centric. So, all of that stuff is synonymous with plastisol, the advent of even like, pseudo plastisols, kind of to support that tea printing business, be it amusement parks or souvenir shops and things like that we have all over the country. And that's what's kind of driven, I feel like it's driven Latin America into using, or in the past has driven them to use more plastisol to mimic kind of the American printer. But, those times are changing. And, I often see, shops either using, some parts of a water-based system or all together using a water-based system. I think people are starting to realize the efficiencies and kind of a different mindset about using PVC-free water-based ink systems.